Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is OSU Football Update, brought to you by Bronze.
All right, welcome in, everyone. And I believe for the first time in the football pod history, we have a three-headed podcast, otherwise known as the Troika from News on 6. My name is Jeremie Poplin. John Holcomb is here. Scott Pfeil is joining us today as well as we get set for an OSU preview versus Baylor. Remember, like and subscribe on the podcast if you haven't yet. If you have, thank you very much. If you haven't, and you haven't told 10 other people, which then leads to 10 other people, them telling them, please do so, because I don't know how many more ways that I can tell you. I cannot make it to work unless you subscribe to the latest podcast. Daddy needs gas money, and that's the only way I'm going to make it to work. Fellas, what's going on? It's been a weird week. I feel like that everyone's just kind of been in and out. The entire last week has been a blur with everything that's been happening in the world of sports. But we're here. I don't know really what's going to happen tomorrow in Stillwater. We'll kind of get to your thoughts on that in a second, John. But, Scott, we haven't had a chance to really sit down and hear your take on everything that's happened over the last week. You were in Stillwater on Monday. Did you ever think that when you left on Monday that would be the last time that you saw Mike Gundy at a podium in Stillwater?
You kind of felt like it was coming, but it didn't really seem like it on Monday. Monday just kind of, I don't want to say it felt like normal because it didn't feel like normal, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it was the last time we were going to get to talk to him. If Gundy knew before that press conference started that he was getting fired, he played it off well. So, but this whole week has seemed like it's been a year and a week. And then I think I noticed this morning that Gundy officially changed his Twitter bio, and I think that kind of really made it official.
It's not official until it's on social media, right? I mean, that's the kind of the way that it does. Remember the old Facebook relationship status? Like it's not official until you change your status on Facebook. To both of you, has it set in yet? Or John, will that not happen until Saturday? Until you look on the sidelines and you don't notice Gundy for the first time in 2 decades?
I think what's interesting about this is when we get into the pregame show on radio, which we go on the air at 12:30 tomorrow, and when it comes to normally we would have 2 recorded segments with Mike, and when that first one comes around, and if it's Doug Meacham, typically that's also a time where Dave and Robert and I take a break to get ready for the next live segment. But I'm going to have my headset on and I'm going to listen to some of that. And that's when it's going to hit me. And I think, Scott, I don't want to put words in Scott's mouth, but Scott, you've been for years, you've gotten a classic shot of Mike running out on the field after the team comes on and then getting him putting his headset on and everything. In some ways, I think that might hit you maybe a little harder than me in terms of, oh, wow, this is not like it has been.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday because I've covered Gundy from 2006 on. I didn't cover him his first season, but from 2006 on. And you're right, it won't hit me until you see the pregame stuff with him coming out. And, Gundy always shook hands with whoever was sitting right there at the end of the tunnel before coming out and pregame. And, yeah, it probably won't hit me until the first time. This is the first time in 2019 years that we won't see him come out of that tunnel.
So, Scott, you said something that was interesting, like that Gundy played it off well on Monday, if he knew at that point that it was going to be his last press conference. When you shot that video of him leaving the field Friday night, which, by the way, I mean, the framing of that with him doing the OSU and walking into the tunnel with the band playing at the same time, I mean, just absolutely, for like the final image of Gundy. At that moment, after what happened on Friday night, did you think that was the last time that you would see Gundy? Which had to be kind of a different thought than Monday, because to me, he went to his press conference. I thought he was going to be good. I didn't think that they would do it on a Tuesday or even later in the week.
I was kind of thinking, especially with the way the game played out Friday night, that would probably be the last time that we would see him as a head coach on that field. And that's why I specifically sought him out to get that video after the game. I was like, this is probably going to be the last time we're going to see him.
John, what's kind of the feel right now from the community in Stillwater, from some of the fan base, from the people that you talk to? It's definitely different. At least it feels right now on a Friday when we're recording this.
Yes, and it's from my small sample size, it's been about the way that you would expect it to fall based on people who would choose to talk to you about it in good times and bad during Mike's tenure. And I would just say this first, though. I sent Mike a text. So I don't text him often. I think everybody knows by now. He did. Dave Hunziker talked to me, Monday night, and after doing the show, Mike's show at Legacy Village, the senior living center out there north of Stillwater, and Dave said, I have no idea what's going to happen, when or whatever. He said, but he just had this feeling. He was like, I've done 750 shows with the guy approximately. And he said, this just had this feeling of finality, which was interesting and kind of sad, and I sent Mike a text Tuesday after everything had become public, and he got back with me. What I was going to say was that he's been closer to Dave, but really to Robert Allen, our sideline reporter, because Robert has known and covered Mike when Robert worked at Channel 4 in Oklahoma City back when Mike was a Midwest City high school quarterback. So he's had a relationship with the family for that length of time. So Robert, it's really hit Robert hard. Robert tends to be a little bit more on the emotional side anyway, and very loyal. And so, Tuesday was tough for him. When I texted Mike on Tuesday, he got back with me early Wednesday morning, sent me a nice reply text back, and I appreciated that. In terms of what you hear from fans and those just kind of on the outside looking in, there was a lot of, well, it was about time and all this kind of, which is a very easy thing to say.
Yeah.
Now, but it's also, it doesn't give enough credit to, even though he didn't like the way that the sport is going, even though he didn't like the NIL and all of that kind of thing, they still found ways to win. And until some injuries hit last year, who saw after 3-0 start that we would be at this point this fast? So there was some people saying, yeah, needed to move in a different direction, need to get younger, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's all fine, but let's not get this far down the road without appreciating and mentioning, look, he did a lot of things that most people thought would never happen at OSU in terms of football.
I feel like that we could have these conversations about Gundy and legacy for a very long time. And I think there's a time to do that, and it's probably towards the end of the season that we'll all have an opportunity to sit down, maybe with the entire crew, and even get K-Dub involved in this and just talk about Mike, the football coach, and we might have an idea who the new head coach is at that time. But the last one that just on this podcast that I think that I want to get into is just in terms of what do you think in the immediacy is Mike's plan? Kale was on the radio saying, Mike wants to coach again, and I'm going with him. Now, we've all been on the radio before. We can say some things when a little juice gets flowing. Who knows ultimately what it is? But is Mike going to kind of remain a little bit in hiding right now? And is it a good idea for Mike just to chill and kind of live in Mike Gundy land away from football a little bit? Because to me, his next actions kind of play into a little bit about how the university wraps their arms back around him 6, 7, 8 months, a year, 2 years down the road. And I might be completely off on that, but if he's cool, I think the university is going to be cool, probably in a quicker fashion than what we might see.
I don't know how, I don't know if there is language in the contract when it comes to the buyout,
Yeah.
which I think there would be an assumption that, hey, let's all play nice here and we're not going to have any issues. So I think there's probably something there. I'm not going to give away everything that Mike texted back to me, except to say that he said, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to watch some football.
Good.
And then he basically said, and then figure out what the next coaching move may look like or something like this. So it was vaguely specific. It's probably the best way to put it.
Yes.
So I don't think he's done, but that could also just be in the heat of not thinking this was going to happen right now, and then you're still in that mode of I had ideas. We had all this stuff. Here's how we figured we could attack the rest of the season, and it gets pulled out from under you that quickly. Then it does take you a little while just to sit back and kind of think about things moving forward.
Scott, you were around the players on Monday after Gundy got done. Now, at that point, they don't know yet. What was kind of their general mood? And now that they've had this happen to them, you add this on top of it and the weight pressing down on their shoulders. What are we going to see on Saturday in terms of a response from the players? Do you have any sort of feel or sense?
Well, like you said, when we talked to them Monday afternoon, and this was right after Gundy's press conference, they didn't know yet. There was nothing official, but they were all, the question still came up. They were all still rallying around him. We talked to 4 players on Monday afternoon, and they all were like, we're 100% behind him. We're fighting for him. And I think, Doug Meacham mentioned this, was that yesterday in his media availability for the first time as head coach. That was Wednesday. I lose track of days this week. He mentioned, the guys have kind of rallied around too. And I think you're going to see, because it was brought up even post game after the Tulsa game, this is kind of a clean slate. Like, as bad as these first 3 games have went, the playoff, as crazy as that is to say, is still there. They can still win a conference title and get a ticket to that college football playoff. And I think that's kind of what they're focusing on now. And they're all just kind of rallying around each other. I mean, you notice, unless I've missed something, of course, the portal window open for them for 30 days. I haven't seen anybody that's currently on the roster. Now, I may have missed somebody, but I haven't seen anybody currently on the roster get into the portal yet. So I think you're going to kind of see just kind of a circling of the wagons, and they're just kind of, do this for Gundy kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say this, Pop. This is new for the Big 12 that you release an availability report, injury report, or whatever you want to call it. And you stack up Baylor's next to Oklahoma State's, and OSU had, I don't know, it looked like about 3 times as many guys listed on there. But that didn't necessarily all mean out. But, that first look is you're looking at anything else like, oh no, what else is going to go wrong? But let's back up a little bit and just say that the majority of the names I saw on the list when that came out, those guys were out for the season anyway. The majority of them that are listed as out. One of the new ones was Oscar Hammond, the tight end from North Texas, who had gotten injured in practice earlier and wasn't available, came back, and now he is out for the season. Looks like a left knee sort of situation. So that, there's no need to make more of that than there is, just from the standpoint of, we knew, for instance, Talon Shetron was out for the season. Some of these guys have been out since before things kicked off. One interesting one was Dwayne Lofton, who I see was listed as out, the slot receiver. But I don't know what that situation is moving forward. And guys are still, I'm sure, thinking over, do I shut it down? Do I try to preserve a redshirt year, or do I need to go ahead and play and prove my worth to whatever happens either here or somewhere else?
Is there any, maybe I'm reading too much into this, is there any way, John, that maybe the players, after this announcement, I don't want to call it like a weight lifted off of them, because there was so much talk of it and, anxious energy around it, being asked questions about it. Now that the Band-Aid's been ripped off, there's a part of me that thinks, like, long term, they may not know, but in the right now, like, what we were worried about, what we were thinking about, what was hanging over the program has been done now. Is it enough to free me up and go play a little bit better, carefree in a way? And like I said, I might be reading way too much into that.
I think that this kind of will go player by player here. But a lot of the talk during media days and, throughout fall camp was, this emphasis on personal accountability. And I think you do have guys who have their heads on straight that will go ahead and continue to attack that way and try to lead some of the guys around him. And I don't want to read too much into this either, but after the news conference Tuesday, and we were doing live shots from inside Boone Pickens Stadium, practice was over and some of the football guys had gone up the training table in the west end zone and were walking by us at one point before we got done. And there was, if I'm just reading expressions and, body language and that sort of thing, there was some shock. There was some, in some cases, looked like anger that, guys didn't want to look at you necessarily, but that's to be expected in the immediacy of it. I do think that this forces the player leadership to be even stronger.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out really quickly which guys want to go ahead and try to fight through it and which guys are just going to kind of go through the motions. And hopefully you don't have a lot of that.
How good is Baylor? Right? Do we know at this point? I mean, I watched the Auburn game earlier this year, and that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge on Baylor. But what have you learned through prep this week, John?
They're good at quarterback. Sorry, Robertson's kind of been a survivor, but he's become a really good quarterback in the process and understands where to throw the ball and when. He's not making a lot of bad decisions there, and he's athletic enough to beat you with his feet. They lost their leading rusher from last year, but they've found a way to kind of, supplement the run game as well. And the thing that makes them really dangerous is their tight end, Michael Trigg. Extremely athletic, he's 6'4" and he's a redshirt senior. He's a guy that has a lot of experience and a lot of athleticism, and he's a guy that almost helped them beat Arizona State in a game that came down to the last play of the game, field goal by the Sun Devils. Defensively, we'll see where they are because they lost a heart and soul kind of guy in the second at linebacker. He's out for the year, got hurt in that Arizona State game. So where does that come from? And how does a defensive-minded head coach in Dave Aranda, how does he try to make up for that? How much do they change? I don't know that they change much at all because Oklahoma State hasn't shown a whole lot on offense. I think they just go play the way they play, and they believe they're good enough to beat you. And let's face it, the odds makers do too.
Just take a quick time out and hear a word from our sponsor, Brahms.
Satisfy your sweet tooth with a Brahms old-fashioned banana split. Crafted with a delicious banana, split down the middle and filled with not one, but 3 scoops of Brahms premium ice cream flavors. To complete this masterpiece, all your favorite toppings are poured on each scoop to bring it all together in a perfect harmony of flavor. Treat yourself to an old-fashioned banana split at Brahms, where every spoonful leaves you wanting more.
Scott, what would a win for Oklahoma State on Saturday mean moving forward? How could it be the type of win that, I don't want to say completely turns the season around, but I can tell you the outlook and just the overall malaise would feel probably a whole heck of a lot better if they could find a way to win their conference opener.
If they could find a way to win, especially as big of an underdog as they are, you could argue that could be one of the biggest wins in program history in at least a decade, because that would completely swing momentum. And as the players mentioned, both post-game Friday night and Monday afternoon, like the conference title and the college football playoff berth is still there. That's one step closer to attaining that and punching a ticket to Arlington in that first weekend of December. So I think it would be huge for the players and just for the fan base, because it's been really 2 seasons now of just malaise and, uncertainty. And I think that first win, especially as huge of an underdog as you are tomorrow, I don't know if you could really put that into words.
Well, and, the other part of me thinks that find a way to win, and you're one step closer, as Doug Meacham said, to getting Hoss Haney back in the mix, John. I mean, he was quick to point that out. Like, hey, we're getting closer. We feel like it's just a few weeks away.
Well, this is interesting because I'm not surprised that Doug is speaking in more positive terms about Haney, but let's not forget that Meacham is the reason Haney is in Stillwater to begin with because of their time together at TCU. And so but when he said on Wednesday after practice, Hoss wants to play. if that's right, and I take Coach Meacham at his word, then that means you're going to have an opportunity to see him back but still, let's see where you are actually when he can come back. And if you struggle up until that point, then there are decisions that each one of these players have to make, as we talked about before, and that may be the most interesting one of all.
Indeed, that it might. John, you got a couple of keys for Oklahoma State on Saturday?
Yes. You gotta. I would say you got to stop the run. That's that's kind of a no-brainer, and that's what you say every week. But it's with this caveat: you got to be able to stop the run and figure out where Michael Trigg is on the field in any place. Because if they line him up more like a tight end, like he's listed, then you kind of have to keep an eye out for him. It's almost like the now I can't remember the tight end's name at Oregon, who may be the most athletic, best tight end in the country, but Trigg is kind of in the same mold. He's just a little older. If you separate Trigg, then that takes a guy, when they detach him, he becomes a matchup nightmare. And if you separate him from the line, now you've got to make sure you know where he is, but you know what that does? That takes a potential safety out of being able to load the box against the run. So it's not just about whether you're stopping the running back, it's about how can you pay attention to that tight end spot. And then also, if they run it, can you get to the spot to keep the guy from breaking tackles and chewing you up? That's the first key. The other key to me is, can you play with passion? Because it did not look the way that you wanted it to look to begin the game against Tulsa. They picked it up in the second half, but it looked uninspired in the first half last Friday night.
Fellas, this has been fun. May I make one suggestion when you leave Stillwater on Saturday, because both of you will be down there. Think about Brahms on your way home, one of our great sponsors. Stopping by, grabbing a burger, maybe a little malt, maybe a little shake. See, I'm still okay at mixing in these sponsor mentions. It hasn't gone completely out of my brain yet. But I appreciate both of you. Safe travels on Saturday, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about when we come back on Monday.
All right, that means, Scotty, that we can have cheese and a shake from Brahms.
That's right.
Yes, please do. Please do. And why not a banana split as well? Just don't share it. Make sure that you get two separate ones for sure. Thank you to everyone for watching as well. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, what is wrong with you? Hit the subscribe button now. We need you to hit the subscribe button. Make all of our bosses very happy by just pointing a little mouse on that little subscribe button and hitting click. Oh, and you might as well go ahead and like everything that we're doing as well. Oklahoma's Own Sports on YouTube. Again, that's Oklahoma's Own Sports on YouTube. And we'll see you next time here on an OSU Update.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's Own digital studio stream. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.